If you watched Star Trek growing up like I did, then you'll know the uncanny feeling of watching precocious MacGuffins of sci fi television become reality. I mean, we have tricorders, communicators, talking computers, even androids. Okay, so an operating system for your smartphone is slightly different than a fully sentient synthetic being, but honestly, that Black Mirror soldier dog is totally real already. Look it up, terrifying. Now, we might be a far cry from transporters or warp travel, but suddenly, the holodeck, of all things, feels like it might be within our grasp, or at least a very particular aspect of it. So let me explain. Star Trek's holodeck was first introduced during the Next Generation series from the 80s and 90s. The technology was a programmable room that was able to simulate the qualities of real life environments at an incredible fidelity. So, full scale holographic projection that rendered not only sight and sound, but also touch, taste, and smell. And while sometimes used for training, the primary use was, of course, entertainment. Because boldly going where no one has gone before just wasn't exciting enough already. There were even episodes of crew members becoming addicted to it, lost in their own fantasies. Even our fearless Captain Jean-Luc Picard cannot resist indulging. While we see the holodeck from the beginning of the show, Season 1, Episode 12, The Big Goodbye, is the first focused on the technology itself. So, plot spoiler. While the Enterprise heads to a delicate diplomatic meeting, where the captain's role is critical, Picard decides to take a break in a noir detective holodeck program called Dixon Hill. It's an obvious choice for anyone who needs to prepare for a big meeting, right? A malfunction causes the holodeck safety systems to fail, and Picard and the other crew members get trapped in the simulation. Here, threats become physically dangerous, and they must resolve the program's scenario in order to escape, a trope that would become a steady part of the canon going forward. Now, I think what is so salient about this tech, with today's point of view, is the interaction between creator, user, and computer. Dixon Hill is a metafictional character, meaning that inside the Star Trek show, the world of Dixon Hill itself is based on a piece of fiction to our already fictional characters. Inception. So while a theoretical author may have established the world and characters for the detective story, the interplay between our players, in this case Picard and his crew, with the programming as executed by the computer is what actually manifests the experience. It's collaborative, real-time, symbiotic storytelling. Now, structurally, this is a lot closer to Dungeons and Dragons than how VR feels today, even without the sensory immersion. Now, in our increasingly poorly written timeline, Zuckerberg and Facebook bet so big on virtual reality that they renamed the whole company Meta. Gives new meaning to the expression, bet the farm. But VR hasn't quite emerged as a medium most people interact with, and the vast majority that do use it to play games. I saw people swear the Apple Vision headset would change your life, change how you work, but Meta sold over 5 million Quest devices in 2025 compared to Apple's less than 400K. And even those numbers represent a significant downturn year over year. It's just not a thing you're going to buy every year. So it seems to me that VR is more Ready Player One than it is holodeck, at least where we are right now. So while VR remains niche, perhaps there is a different renaissance happening that brings us closer to a less superficial aspect of the holodeck, dynamic content. One thing that always stood out to me about the holodeck was that anyone could create their own entertainment just by interacting with it. Simply explain in natural language what you want, and the Starship computer would help manifest that reality. Sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it, Monsieur Claude? Now, while we might not have touch, taste, and smell, I think we might just be at a tip of a new modality of content. One that is tailor-made for the user, by the user themselves, but in collaboration with the machine. Generative AI has the capability to unlock completely new formats of media, some that were inconceivable only a couple years ago. I'm so excited by this possibility that I'm embarking on a journey to become a pioneer. I'm starting a new thing. It's a generative audio engine. So if you know me, you know audio has always had a special place in my heart. I've always said people have been sitting around campfires, singing songs, and telling stories to each other as long as we've been people. Shout out to Sarah from NPR for that one. Now it seems we are welcoming the computer to the table. I've just published my first generative podcast. It's called Gumleaf. Philosophically and spiritually, it's aimed to occupy the same headspace as something like Bluey. Gumleaf is a show for youngsters that follows a family of four koalas as they grow and learn through play, wonder, and whimsy. The show writes itself based on a world that I constructed, and each episode generated becomes part of the canon of the show itself. It's really an experiment in dynamic generative content with continuity and symbiotic storytelling. As a parent myself, it's hard to find compelling screen free entertainment for the little ones. So if you're interested in building your own story for kiddos, sign up for the waitlist at lully.me. I do plan on doing more of this podcast as well as some other things coming up, so stay tuned. Cheers. Thanks for listening to One Thing Worth a Rant by me, Jeremy, a show where I ramble on about some intersection of pop culture, media, and society. Talk soon.